Okay, hello and welcome to another ComfyUI tutorial. Tonight, we're going to be covering a module called a prompt module. Now, if you have ever made workflows and stuff before, you'll obviously have used prompting. You'll have probably used clip text encodes. Where's my code? You'll have used these before, and more often than not, if you haven't done anything particularly advanced, you'll have used the clip text mode in its default state, which just has a text box attached to it. The reason that we don't generally use the text box on these in a more advanced setup is because it allows us a lot more freedom with the actual prompting. Because we can send the text or the string from the prompt through the whole workflow. We can send it into any text encode node that we want. So we could have multiple of these. We can combine and change prompts in different ways, and then put them into another case sampler using clip text encode, which basically allows us to, for example, in this one, I have clip text encode for each case sampler here. Here's an example of the kind of stuff you can do with prompting. I'm also modifying the prompt at every step here. So I have a prompt up here, it changes from each one to the next, and each time changes the image that comes out. So you can do that kind of stuff. And as you can imagine, you get some interesting results doing that kind of thing. With prompting in text boxes, you can do things like replacing parts of your workflow with different things. In this one, I'm stripping all of the numbers from a text kind of prompt which is being provided for me. I don't want any numbers in it. I don't want certain symbols. So I'm just removing them all here and outputting one that's been cleaned of all these things I don't want. We could also use it to get rid of things like formatting. So I'm removing the brackets here, which allows me to remove all ComfyUI prompting. I'm also removing all A1111 prompting. So I can just copy in a prompt from the web and it just strips everything and it just runs without any fancy stuff. We can do things like shuffling every single word in the prompt. We can do all kinds of crazy stuff with prompting. In fact, this is my crazy prompting thing where I just went crazy with it, trying to learn how to do everything I possibly could using prompts and using strings. And I found a whole bunch of different ways of doing things. I'm going to hopefully show you a few of those while I teach you how to do a prompt module. And but we're going to start off from scratch. I'll start off with a default workflow. This will work in any workflow. You just have to plug it into the clip text encodes, whichever clip text encodes you want. And the module should work. It's going to be a very basic one, like a kind of a basic version of stuff. There are modules which can do this stuff for you. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to do what I'm going to teach you, but if you learn what I teach you, then you should be able to do anything you want without having to rely on someone else's stuff. You won't have to rely on them having the right words in their word lists. You won't have to rely on them being good at making a prompt because it's all on you that way. As an example of that, I'll just show you this. So this is the SDXL auto prompter for ComfyUI. And if you look at the kind of prompt outputs that it gives you, it is giving you things like brackets, but it's using brackets here. These are the correct ComfyUI formatting. But if you look at here, this is the one. This is an A11 prompting. Now I think it works with ComfyUI, but this is just one of the things in here which occasionally crops up that is possibly incorrect, possibly not understood by ComfyUI. So there are other things like that uses break over here, and there's a couple other things that uses that. I'm not 100% sure if ComfyUI actually makes use of those. I don't think it does in most cases. There's like a node you can get which does that. But additionally to that, it has all these settings and things which bring in stuff that you might not be after. And these are mainly prompt randomizers for testing ideas and testing models and stuff like that. But if you do end up using these as part of your regular workflow, it's a good idea to be able to build your own systems. So anyway, I'm going to teach you how to do all this stuff. We're going to learn how to basically build an auto prompter. But it can be used in all kinds of different ways. So let's start from scratch. Default workflow, thank you. All right. So obviously, default workflow, very bare bones basic. We're going to switch the text encoders to text. And I'm going to change the colors from the green, and we'll go to red for the negative. And I'm going to take the save image off because I don't need to save the images, but clearly you might want to. I like to use preview images because then I'm going to save it on my hard drive, unless I really want to, and then I just save them manually. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it at default settings, so we won't need more than that. We're going to need text multi-line or text box or text something. Hopefully, if you have one, it will be a text box which is usable in multi-line format. Some aren't. There are not many aren't, but some aren't. So make sure that you can press enter and keep stuff formatted in a line, otherwise it's going to possibly have issues. If you want to be safe, just use Wassuit's text multi-line node, because this one definitely works. Okay, so starting off with this, we can simply plug these in, and they become prompts this way. It's the same as if this wasn't linked up, but this is the basics of it. This is how you actually start off. So text multi-line. Now, these prompts are fine the way they are, but we can make them better. If we're going to make a prompt module, we may as well make them better. Now I'm going to use the text multi-line over here as the start of my prompt. So it's a good idea to have a place where you can enter your own information so that you can just program what you want it to do. So I'm basically going to show you how to set up a thing so that when you type in some words, it'll grab certain commands that you send it, and it will actually make stuff happen based off those commands. If the commands are not there, it'll ignore it, which means that you can enter your own prompt, do it manually if you want, and if you want to actually make use of these things to generate a landscape or a character, you can just type the code in and it will do that for you. So let's start with something, and we'll give it a code, and then we'll build the thing which detects the codes. So let's start with let's do a photo of, and we want a subject. So I'm going to use SSS for subject, so that's going to be the first thing we look for, and we'll have it in LLL. So SSS is the first code, LLL will be our second code, and I'm going to add a QQQ as like the end code. And the reason I use 3 letters for these is because 3 letters is something that doesn't turn up in the English alphabet, generally speaking, unless you've made a typo, which means it's not going to kick off just through random stuff. It may kick off if you make a mistake, but it shouldn't pick up any words as code if they're just 3 letters. And it's the fewest number of letters we could do. If we type in like actual words for these, it kind of stops you from making prompts sometimes if you're actually using words that exist. So, and we'll do QQQ for quality. All right, so we have 3 codes to get. We have to get SSS, LLL, and QQQ. So let's get. We're going to need replacement texts. I'm just using quality of life suit. There are some there are a few different places where you can get these nodes. Wassuit's got some. There's pretty common. So we need to make sure the text is an input. So if we switch this to input and then we plug this in, this is how we send information to this to be checked for replacing things. The old is what particular code we're looking for in this particular node. So we're looking for the subject, so SSS. And the new is for any kind of replacement we're going to send that. Now I'm just going to start off with a simple, we're going to use a text multiline to start off this. So new is going to be input. And we're just going to copy this down here. And we're going to say cat. Just as our example, you can see what it's doing. And we'll just send this as our prompt. So if we run, I'll just do a show text here. So show text is a Python GOS node, really good nodes to be using. And if you're not using it yet, you should have been a long time ago if you have not actually tried that yet. So I run it. It's sending us a photo of a cat in a LLL. That's because I haven't filled out these codes, but we are sending the codes. And it is actually replacing SSS with a cat. If we look over here, it's replacing that. If we didn't have SSS, it wouldn't put the cat in here, and I'll show you that. So if I remove this, if we run it, the cat bit disappears because it's not finding that code to replace. So SSS makes our character or subject. This could be an object, this could be anything. It's not restricted. It's just how we're formatting it. Like this could be anything. So if we use this, and at this point we're going to shift everything a little bit over here. And I'm going to leave negative. And it's making people. Okay. All right, so let's go with, we need to make something else. We need to make the location. So if we throw in another replace text. Now you might think there's some kind of that you just kind of attach this in certain ways, but like basically you need to make sure that if you have replacement text, you need to pass it through the replacement text. So it goes from one to the next, to the next, to the next. It doesn't really matter how you arrange them. I tend to arrange them linearly because it makes a little bit more sense when you do it linearly. And I'm just going to change this one to LLL so that it is now just looking for that. Okay. So I set it up like this because it's a little bit easier to kind of remember what things are doing what. Like if you had it down here, it kind of makes it a bit harder to figure out which ones first, and you might plug things in incorrectly if you are ordering them the other way. Like if you're done, once you're done wiring this up, arrange it however you want, but when you're just working on it, it's a good idea to hook it up linearly so you actually know what's going where, because you will easily get lost. These. So let's grab another prompt. So now we're going to be replacing the location with in a house. Now, because I've got inner here, I don't really need the inner. I can just replace this with house. But you could put anything you wanted into here. I had inner because I forgot that I had it up in here. So, all right, if we run this now, it will go a photo of a cat in a house. Now I just have to replace Q, which is the quality settings. So if we go again, repeating the whole process, changing the code to QQQ, making another text box. Whoops, it plugged in the wrong connector. Okay, and quality settings, so HD, 8K, and something else. Yeah, film, grain, and my standard stuff of still, and probably motion blur. Okay. All right, so now we have a prompt being built over here, and if we look over here and we run it, we now have a full prompt being built. It's giving us a photo of a cat, giving us a location, and it's giving us quality settings. Now, obviously I don't have commas after some of these, and this is something you have to pay attention to if you're using those kind of things. Commas don't really mean much. Spaces don't really mean much to prompting either. You could technically enter all these with no spaces in it. Shouldn't affect the image that much at all. But let's do more advanced stuff with this. Now, so if we look over here, we'll see it is generating kitty cats in a house, of course. So yeah, if we go over here now, let's do more advanced stuff with it. Now, it's a good idea to keep an eye on what it is you want to actually do with each of these things. So we're going to just start off with the subject, and the subject, it's going to be some kind of a person or a creature or a monster. So you need to build lists, basically. You need to think about this in terms of a series of lists if you're going to build this kind of a automated prompting thing. So we'll put one over here and we'll just add a bunch of words to it for things that we want. So we'll go, how about man? Oh, we'll just go with man. No, just man. Woman. What else have we got? Dwarf. King. Queen. Orc. And alien. Why not? So this is a series of characters, if you like. It's part of the character building process. So we're going, this is the basic components of it. And you want more words than that. So what other lists can we have? We can add stuff like what kind of hair do we want? Do we want to have we don't want to use colors. Colors tend to poison stuff. So we want to stick to styles rather than colors. Punk hair, bearded, what else? Dreadlocks, mohawk, bull, and something else. A Santa hat. This gives our person some stuff on their head. So you would probably arrange it like so. So we need to, because we could just build lists before we actually attach these things together. Let's add some more stuff. So we'll give them some clothing options. So survival gear, Santa suit. What else have we got? Medieval armor, cyborg robotics. Yeah, just cyborg robot. Why not? And spacesuit. Always good spacesuit. Right. So now we have these options to make characters, and they can be combined in a whole bunch of different ways. If they get mashed together, you, instead of just having like 5 different characters, you've got something like 20 to 40 different characters you can have from these combinations. So if we now are to connect them, we need to make sure that we are selecting a random one each time. So random line. And this is where you need the formatting comes in. Random line needs to have lines of text in this format in order to pick random lines. Now, there are options. There are a couple of different nodes which will pick random things from a text box. You could also load these from text files. If you have these in your hard drive as a text file, you can load that way as well. Just requires finding the nodes that will do that, and off the top of my head, I think there's literally just the text file load node. We'll probably do it from Wasuit. So, because we have one random line, we can just copy it. Just remember that if you do this, they're all in the same seed, so the first time it runs, they're all going to be the same selection of the first one on the list. Go up here. We now have it selecting those 3. And we're going to do a simple combine, so concatenate. And we're going to use the class suit concatenate. And what this should give us with a show string, show text. Sorry if I'm zoomed out a little bit far. I'm working on a 4K monitor, and as a result, these things are gigantic when I'm zoomed in at this kind of size. Like, and this here is about the size of my hand. So I run this. Okay, so it has put them in together, but it hasn't formatted it properly. So let's make sure that we have a delimiter set. So delimiter is basically the thing which is put between the text as it goes along. So I'm just going to use a spacebar. That. And it should now, if it generate, there we go. Right, there we go. It's put everything up properly, so it's now separate words. All right, so now we have an orc, a Santa hat, cyborg. So let's see. We'll remove the A from that, and we're going to add something else. So I'm going to add. I'll add this individual static text. Just to show you how you would do that, which is. So I'm returning a single word wearing over here, and it's going to go between my top random line. So now it's going to be it's orc. No, sorry, it's a queen wearing punk hair, survival gear, basically, right? Wearing the hair, who knows what that could do to it. You can do all kinds of things. You could set up different static words if you wanted to. It's really up to you how you format these. This is basically a way of building a prompt. It's a very useful thing to get to know how to use. So is the text random line. So this has generated a character, possibly not a good one. And now we just need to plug it in replacement of this one over here. So now we can remove that, and it's just going to make use of this stuff to make a character. If we run it now the prompt is a photo of a man wearing dreadlocks, survival gear, in a house, UHD, 8K, so on, so on, so on. Which now gives us a dude who is motion blurring, throwing his dreadlocks around the place. So as you can see, pretty powerful. You can get it to just generate a random character every time this way. And because you can set those options yourself, you can build the options into it. So if you only wanted a limited number of different things to show up in this, you can do that. Build the list yourself. Whereas if you're using, if you're actually using an automated one, you're not going to have that flexibility. Unless you go in and find the files where it lists those things. Which maybe that's easy for you. It's not easy for me to do that. So, all right. So we have the first one. We have the subject done. Let's do the location. And the location is set up in exactly the same way. It's not any different for these. The only difference is that in my more complicated setup for this, what I have is multiple sets of these replace text within these, which allows me to have more dynamics to the options. So I can change things based on whether I have codes in here or not. So location, location, location. Let's go with house, temple, whoops, long thing. Temple, castle, warehouse, wasteland. What else have we got? Swamp. Hang on, we can be more complicated than individual words. So I can never spell Christmas. Farm, Christmas tree farm. And yeah, Christmas. All right, so now we have that stuff set up. Let's do a random line. And because we're not really doing any fancy logic, we're just going to plug the random line straight into the list. I know what it is. If you you could have way more complicated prompts in any of these. You could have whole bunch of words in any of these, you can do the same stuff. If you have certain things you really like to make, you can put them in these. There is no reason not to. Just make sure that if you're using lists that you do have a line break, otherwise it's not going to be able to select them properly. Okay, location, and this is just going to stay the way it is. So I'm going to make that one blue so we know that one's the quality one. And if we run it, now it's making Santa, and it's making Santa in a castle. So it hasn't given him armor. Santa tends to be overburned in images. It can be hard to get him to not be looking like a very clean and prim and proper Santa. But as you can see, we can actually make some interesting stuff with this. Just clicking go, and it'll just keep generating characters in those locations in those different ways. And if you set this up with big lists of stuff, with lots of things you want to do, you'll be able to make images that you would never have come up with on your own. Especially really good at like kind of exploring ideas. Now I made another thing. So you might have seen the random kind of thing which I had, and so I may as well make a copy of it. Do I have a version of text? I do. I'm just going to grab this here. All right, multi-line, paste. So the words in here, just random descriptive words. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to plug this into, we're gonna plug it into a shuffle. So what text shuffle is going to do is it's going to find the separator, and it's going to look between those separators for words. It means you need to make sure that you have the correct separator. If you're using spaces between all these words, that you use spaces. If you're using commas, make sure you use commas, or it's not going to shuffle those words. If you have it with commas and you have like sentences and stuff in here, it will shuffle the entire sentence. Okay, and if we go and go to string, we need to make this go into a truncate. So what truncate will do, and it's a pretty cool node, you can count by characters or words, so it can individual letters or words, and it will truncate, which means it'll chop everything off except what you're asking it for. So we're asking it for 10 words from the end of the text that is given, and it's just going to grab basically the end 10 words every time. And because we are shuffling, we are getting 10 random words from this whole list every time. And you can set this up with your own kind of random list. You can set this up. You can set these other ones up in the same way as this if you wanted to. Now, if we run show text, I'll show you what the output's going to be. Loving, romantic, homely, numerous, scandalous, smooth, fretful, glitter, overconfident, motion. Now, most of those words are not going to mean anything. If we plug them into this, it'll only really make use of the influences from those if there is enough of them to generate something visual. So most of the time, they won't do much. Now, I'm going to add another code. I'm going to add... We'll add the code to the front of the SSS. So we'll add it into the character one, and because we're using a concatenate here, let's modify the concatenate. My cat has decided that my lap is due for cattening. Hello. All right, so taking over my arm. All right. Okay, I'll be quick. And we can pat you some more. So we need to make sure that this front one actually holds a code, and it's going to hold. Oh, why would I make it hold a code if I can just plug it in? Yeah, that's what we'll do. I could do the replace text thing, but instead, I am going to cheat, and I'm going to make another concatenate. Plug the concatenate into the front of this. That way it comes up the front, and we're going to plug in the first one all the way down here. So let's grab the output from you, and I'll rearrange these so they make a little bit more sense, and remove that. All right, so now we have our random 10 words being sent into this concatenate through here, and it goes in here, and we should have this appearing. There we go. So it should work now if we run it. All right, so now it is throwing these physical descriptions up the front of our character generator, and that's going into here. And if we look over here at the prompt, photo of a sophisticated, cheap, well-to-do, animated, sorted, body grey, body electric, yada 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 yada. You get the point. It adds a bunch of random words, and as a result, you will get very random outputs, and potentially not safe for work stuff. Knowing this thing, the list that I have, I just copied it off of an online dictionary. There's these sites we can get vocabulary lists of words, and thankfully they're in copy pastable format, and I just grabbed a whole bunch of them. So as you can see, we can just make random characters with it now. So seeing as it's supposed to be a module, let's format it like a module, shall we? Generally these get pretty big because they have a lot of stuff in them. And really, it's just a matter of squishing them all together in a sensible way that's easy enough for you to modify at some point if you need to modify it. Okay, so we'll go here, and then yeah, I may as well. It's kind of a good idea to line them up in the order of execution if you can. And we'll run that actually up. Word soup. Why not? Yeah, all right. That can be a node. That can be. Add group for selected nodes. And there you go. This is now a prompt module. It contains everything you need to build prompts with. You can manually enter stuff in here. If you don't have the codes in here, it won't run the code. So you can, if you just type stuff in here, it becomes manual prompting. If you run any of the codes in here, it will run the subsequent things. And if you organize your own kind of setup in this way with codes and replaces, you basically build your own prompts based off what you have in them. And as you can see, it will just generate stuff. All right, anyway, thank you for watching. Have a Merry Christmas. I may not have a tutorial for a while, but clearly I have some pats to do. So I will see you next time I do a tutorial. Stop recording.